We're looking at the UMP-45 gas blowback in this episode of the Gear Guide. So if you guys have watched my reviews before, you know I'm a big fan of the UMP-45, just the gun itself. I like the styling, I like the design. I know some people think it's kind of blocky and kind of unwieldy, but I think it just looks cool. There's something so aggressive and mean about this submachine gun. Well, I was really excited to see that there's a gas blowback version released in the US here not too long ago, and I'm really excited to get my hands on it to give it a test. So in designing the UMP-45, Umarex partnered with VFC to build this gun out. And VFC's really been getting into the gas blowback space here lately. They started with the MP7 and they have their gas blowback M4s overseas. And then moving into the UMP-45, they're really refining their skills with some really neat things under the hood, but we're gonna get to those a little bit later. Let's talk about the externals first. So on the outside, you're going to get everything you expect from a UMP-45. Front and rear sights, polymer body almost throughout. There's actually very little metal in this build externally, with the exception of maybe this rear side post here, the rails on the front, left and right, and rail on the bottom, and the trigger and fire selectors. Shy of that and the couple hinges, there's not much on here that isn't made of polymer, with also the exception of the stock. Here, the cheek rest and the butt pad are both kind of a softer rubbery material versus the nice nylon fiber hard material built throughout. And of course, the rails, you get one on either side on the front, you get one on the bottom, so you can put lights and lasers here on the side, and then a small lower rail here on the front. Now be warned, on the UMPs, it's kind of the same way. You have a really tough time getting a rail like a foregrip that slides on, so make sure you pick up one that actually clamps on, because there's not a lot of gap to get that runway going, but that's just the nature of the UMP-45. In front of the rail itself, you actually have two sling attachments here on the left and the right, below the front barrel, and the front barrel itself is metal. That is another metal part I didn't mentioned earlier, and runs all the way in. It's free float. Moving on down across the top, you do get a metal upper rail where you can put a scope on like I have here, and then like I said, you have the front and rear sights. The rear sight itself has two apertures. You have the actual hole aperture, and then you can flip it forward to a little notch aperture, so you can pick which one you like according to your play style. It also has adjustments for height on the rear one, but no windage adjustment at all on this, so keep in mind you're only going to have vertical adjustment, not left and right adjustment, but again, it's no big deal. I mean, this thing shoots pretty darn straight out on the battlefield. Moving on to the back, you do have a single sling attachment point here in the rear, so you can clip in here, and you do have that side folding stock. Press the button, it hinges right over and locks in place with this post over here above the shell ejection port. You can still see that great logo trademark even with the stock folded. And speaking of trademarks, they're on both sides, not only here on the bolt itself, but on the other side you have HK UMP, as well as a unique serial number for every single gun. Rounding it all out with the grip and the trigger, they decided to add one of my favorite features in. They put the 2-round burst. So not only do you have safe, semi, and full auto, but parked squarely right there between semi and full is that 2-round burst. So you can get those great double traps, but still conserve ammunition, which is important because the magazine holds only 30 rounds. And that's kind of the Achilles heel of this gun. I know they stayed really true with it and tried to keep the capacity down close to the real one. The real one actually has a few less rounds on the 45 version. But the positive about this is you're only going to have to fill this magazine up with green gas once every 2, 3, or sometimes even 4 magazine fills of BBs, because it holds a ton of gas in comparison to how many rounds it holds. So internally, this gun is built unique. VFC actually took the time to add a great feature. Remember, I teased it earlier. I want to tell you about it right now. There's actually an adjustment on the bolt itself. So if you pop the back off here and you pull the bolt assembly out, which is really simple to do, there's just a pin here in the rear holding everything together. It kind of hinges apart. Once you get to it, there's an adjustment on the bottom of the bolt. A little Allen key loosens that slider and you can move it forward or back. Now, when this thing ships from the factory, it's in the forward position, so it's going to give you the highest FPS you're going to get out of this gun. But as you slide it to the rear, it's going to lower that FPS down, but also increase the recoil on this thing. So out of the box, this thing kicks really good. I loved it. But if you want it to kick even more, you can open this thing up, make a quick adjustment, put it back together, and you're good to go. And the best part is, because it's meant to be adjustable, making that change isn't going to void your warranty at all. So taking the thing up to the Chrono, we were seeing a really healthy 375 feet per second in the factory setting. That's the way it comes from VFC. So if you want to change that, remember I said you can adjust it back. So if your field, let's say indoor, is 350, don't freak out. You don't have to go buy an expensive replacement bolt. You can just pop that thing open, make a quick adjustment, and have this thing tuned down so you guys can play indoor no problem. So like I said earlier, I was impressed with what this gun could do, the accuracy and the adjustability in the FPS, and even for being 375 feet per second, it had quite a bit of range on it, and you can of course tune that hop up in for whatever BB you're running. I would definitely recommend though, if you're gonna run this thing, step up in the BBs. For whatever reason, this gun loves the heavy stuff. 2.8s, or if you've got it, 3.2s, are perfect in this thing. So I guess the only negatives on this gun that I could talk about are really around the magazine. One being the magazine capacity. 30 rounds is pretty low for an airsoft gun. It's gonna put you at a little bit of a disadvantage, but not a huge one. Using semi or that 2-round burst is gonna help you conserve the ammunition. And the second one is the price of the magazines. They are on the higher end at $49.95 retail for the US. So you're gonna be a little bit wallet shocked if you're looking at getting a full load out with this. But once you do, you're really looking at some great magazine efficiency, which is a positive. And I think that's the other thing when you're looking at a positive of this gun is not just the magazine efficiency, but something I didn't mention earlier in the build section is how light this is. When I first picked this thing up, I was surprised because of how well it's built. It feels really sturdy, but it's extremely light, so you're not gonna get fatigued on the battlefield. So guys, if you're looking for a really unique submachine gun in the gas blowback category and you want to stand out from the rest and give your skills a good test, check out the UMP-45 by Umarex and Elite Force here in the US. You can pick this up for $299 US anywhere Elite Force products are sold or at an Airsoftology preferred retailer. All right guys, so what do you think of UMPs? I love them. I know some people are like, it's either a love-hate. It's kind of like bullpup guns. You either love them or you hate them. I'm a big fan of the UMP and I love how light this thing is. And if you want it even lighter, something I didn't talk about in the review, you can ditch these side rails if you're not going to use accessories there and really drop the weight, because most of the weight on the front is just the barrel and these extra side rails being metal. You ditch 2 of these and it brings it down even more. This thing is going to be a featherweight if you did that. But I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. Do you like the UMP? Are you passionate against it or for it? Seems like nobody's, just kind of in the middle. I want to hear about it in the comment section below. Well guys, that's it for this episode of The Gear. Got to be back in the next one where I show you an aftermarket UMP-45 high cap that you put in your backpack and you run a hose to your gun.